Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth live stream in the Unfeathered community. This is the Career Files. We are currently live streaming on X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. My co host and co founder, Justin Thomas, was not able to join us today. However, my good friend Maximiliano Morales, also known as Max Morales, is our special guest today. We will be uncovering his journey. There are some themes that we will also be talking about. Max is like a chameleon to me. He has lived more lives than a cat. And you guys will all, gents and ladies, you will all find out as we unravel his story. So, first off, a brief introduction. Max is the CEO of Andes Wines, as well as Amex Tech Labs. There's a plethora of different things that he is doing and has done, and I'm super excited. So, Max, welcome to our live stream. Thank you for accepting this on such short notice. We appreciate you. Glad to
Thank
have you with us.
you. I'm very happy, excited, and it's a good Sunday to talk to you, as always.
Yes, thank you. So, we'll be uncovering a journey from your childhood up to now. So, to our audience who is listening in, we will uncover Max and his story. But along the way, this is called the career files. So, we'll be having raw, unfiltered, and unfeathered conversations throughout this entire discussion. One of the things that really stands out in Max's journey, and we also had a space on this on X a few weeks ago on the topic of niche versus generalist versus niche. And I wish Max was there because he is the perfect person to talk about. We're going to zoom in and zoom out on his journey consistently. And throughout this discussion, I'll be dropping nuggets of wisdom from Max, directly from Max, and maybe adding my 2 cents from time to time to help you in your career. We always talk about the importance. Some people come to us in the hunt on and at Unfeathered and they're like, I need a mentor. Sometimes uncovering someone's biography and their life and learning from the mistakes that they made, or I would like to call it learning opportunities. Mentors are all around you. And sometimes just by uncovering their stories, that is a great way for you to not repeat the same mistakes that they made. We're learning about Max's history today. So, Max, let's talk about it. Let's start from your childhood. Where did the Max Morales story begin? Where did it begin?
Um, Hello, everybody. I'm Maximiliano Morales. I lived in a very small town in the south of Chile. Chile is the country that has Indian or indigenous people that they are still fighting for their land until now. So I was living in the limit of the Laja River. Laja and Biobío is a junction of two rivers. And since I was a child, I was close to the ocean, to the water. I used to walk in the river, very rural, and I saw vines there for many times. And I was curious about those vineyards that were the beginning of my career. So I would say 500 kilometers south of Santiago, the capital of Chile. Chile has almost 400 and 300 kilometers of long from north to south. So I live just in the middle.
All right. So your love of wine started really at a very young age. And I think the geography and the location where you lived kind of contributed to that. Your parents, how did they instill this love that you have for wine, or how did they influence you in your journey?
Now that I'm 51, I can understand what they did. My parents are second generation that they went to university. In South America, you know how it is. It's a land of opportunities, but you need to have education so you can scale up a little bit in life. So we were I was trained. I studied in a very high quality school, number one in Chile actually, because it was financed by a paper mill factory. So paper mill factory, it was the largest paper mill factory in the world in that little town. So I was bilingual, and then my parents offered me to be an exchange student in somewhere in the world. I couldn't pick, so randomly I applied, and they sent me to Texas, and I became a Chilexan. So that's
Well,
that.
that's a word now.
Yeah.
Amongst many of your talents, you invent words too. So, Max, you and I have talked separately. I know for a fact that you are a connector. I know that you've done career coaching. I know that you've done headhunting, public relations, marketing, CEO, tour leader. You were featured in Bloomberg, National Geographic. You have an love and obsession with wine, DNA of coffee. I'm just letting you all know the chameleon before your eyes, everyone. And you have consistently reinvented yourself. And I myself, I'm 42. I'm aging myself right now. But I'm fascinated by, and there's someone else as well that really your story kind of reminds me of him, Timo, from the Netherlands. And his story is similar to yours. He went on a student exchange program. Now, like, how did that going there, how did that contribute to the person that I have before my eyes? What happened during that exchange? And why did you decide to even like embark on that journey in the first place? What was the motivating factor?
First, I will say Finland. My parents always see that there's an opportunity there. So we host an exchange student from Finland, Petri, and Petri, he enchanted us. Our family was very care about him, and we were the first family in my town to receive an exchange student. So then I decided to take the same challenge, and in that time we didn't have internet. So the institution that I traveled with, American Field Service, used to be a war, started in the war and then became an exchange student program. So they trained us for a year to become global citizens. They train us in boot camps, we all together, and they prepare us to be totally disconnected from our reality and become a new member of a new country. So when I arrived to Texas, I didn't know anything about Texas because we didn't have a internet in 1991. So we saw an encyclopedia.
It's a long time ago.
Oh yeah, I saw the Alamo, and I saw Amarillo, Texas. So I was expecting to arrive to the desert, and I arrived to Dallas, Denton, where it was a big forest. So my life started to change, and until now, I always say that I'm Chilexan because I feel more Texan. I have this sense that I belong to Texas because I have two families, I have two mothers, two fathers because I changed families in the process. I have friends that they are Texans, and I have friends all over the world. So I don't feel bad about having less friends in Chile because my friends are overseas. So that's the beginning of the start of my story, I think.
So I noticed a lot of patterns between your story and Timo. Uh, what I will say is, I just to give everyone context, Timo appeared in a podcast that I'm editing his episode called "Come Say Hi." I will be sharing the link for everyone, and he was talking about the same thing. He learned so much about himself in the process when he did an exchange. He That family became like his family, and he went through a self-discovery journey as well. So, wisdom number 1 to our audience, if you're in your early 20s or if you're in high school, if you have the ability, because this isn't unfortunately an opportunity that everyone has. There are organizations that I used to be a part of as well, like Isaac, or I'm sure there are other ones as well, which give you the opportunity to do an exchange program. Some schools offer it as well. Take that opportunity. Sometimes it's an opportunity to study abroad for a semester or two. Sometimes it's like my niece did, an opportunity to do an internship abroad. Traveling, that opportunity to go somewhere else to experience the culture, the life, that is and that is something that you carry with you. That's an experience that you can't put a price on. So Max, thank you for sharing that nugget of wisdom with us. So you went to Texas, you found your new family. What happened there that brought you to the next pillar in your journey? I mean, to the next stage of your journey. Sorry.
Fortunately, I was bilingual already, so I didn't have this gap that everybody has to learn English. So I was very easy for me to integrate in the community. My family introduced me to my future friends. We start partying. We start going to the high school, and I took very seriously to become a global citizen. So I took astronomy, German, classes that I will never take in Chile. So I started meeting people in Texas, and I got a love for investigation. I went to the library very often because we didn't have internet, so I could read books and stuff. But I promised myself that I was going to be outside most of the time and talking to people because I am social. I was the president of my class for many years in Chile, but there I had the chance to lead something that I didn't know what it was because I was just the exchange student from Chile. And I have all these memories from the movies, what the Americans did for the exchange students. So I tried to fit, and I fit. I had a lot of friends until now. I have WhatsApp groups. We are on Facebook, and they are very well known in Texas. And I always kept the connection with them until now. So it's very important.
So you proactively decided to
Yes.
go out, to put yourself out there, to fit, to meet new people. And that's a trend that I've noticed from you from way back then, as early as 1991. I wanted to ask you a question. We did say we're going to zoom in and zoom out. This love of connecting, this love of self development, was that something that started early in your childhood? Or that's something that you decided to go like full blown social butterfly, extravagant, extrovert, I mean, when you left Chile and you went to the US?
No, it was always I was the president of my class. I was leading my friends. Always I was the one to make the parties, the connections in the university. Also, I was the president of the ski club. I always did things that nobody did because I live in Texas. So I helped myself to become more global. Particularly, I was living in a small city studying agronomy,
Yes.
so I created my opportunities because I didn't fit in very easy. I was not easy to fit in, but I was very outgoing. Being outgoing doesn't mean that you feel that you fit in. So I created the platforms and the meetings that I wanted to meet new people because I felt that Chileans in general, look how I'm saying it, Chileans, I feel like I'm a little Texan, so they didn't understand this new Max that arrived to Chile after a year in Texas. So since I was little, I was very a leader, really.
I appreciate that quality because I know a lot of people, we're all global citizens. We all want to move around. We all want to evolve and grow. And I host a social audio room on X called The Hunt uh, with the founder, Sean Charles. I hope he's here and I hope he's listening in. And in that beautiful community, we have people that come up and say they ask questions around their job search, and many of them want to change countries. One of the things we tell our audience about is the importance of creating opportunities for yourselves. My guest last week was saying the same thing, Jared Liu. He was talking about how he created opportunities for himself. He proactively connected with people. So you guys are going to see themes that are going to keep resurfacing in these live streams. If you want to succeed in your career, especially if you're starting out like Max, who was very early in his career, he moved. You need to create those opportunities. You need to proactively reach out. You didn't have internet back then, so I'm really curious, like, how did you do it exactly?
Writing. I used to
Writing?
write.
What do you
I
mean?
write one letter to my family every day for at least three months every day. And to my friends, I used to collect. I have a journey. I have a journey from the year in Texas. So I used to write every day a journey, and then I used to write letters. And I have a actually my mom has a case of all my letters, and now I'm reading those letters. It's like my emails. So, and I'm writing a book, writing about my story because I have records, I have photos, and I used to. I have friends that I wrote for example, Lisa from Jamaica, Max, and we met in Facebook. I said, Max, you wrote for me for at least a year, just because I wanted to go to Jamaica, so we're friends. And the only ways that you don't forget about me is that I write you. And she was laughing because now, of course, we are in WhatsApp. And it's like, Max, you're gonna be welcome here. Yeah, but if I didn't write, you would forget about me, you know. So we are in constant. In that time, we didn't have internet, so the only way was writing letters.
Writing letters to people who are abroad. I
Yes,
understand that, and I love that. That really, like a chameleon, that term is actually borrowed from Timo because that's the term he used when I was interviewing him. But so thank you, Timo, for that. But what I wanted to say is locally, how did you stand out? What did you do? Because I think with all of this AI that we have right now, with all of this tech, this is just my gut feeling. I think that we need to go back to our roots a little bit and go back to old school.
sure.
And I really miss that. And I don't even know. I'm trying to think, how did you build an audience locally in Texas when no one knew who you are? How did you do it?
I took three classes that open up my career or my connections here in Texas. I took German, I took astronomy, and the typical classes, Spanish, and Sundays with my family. We used to go to the church, and I promised, really promised myself, because you know the weather how is in Texas. Either you are heat or you are cold. In that time, we didn't have much cold temperature, so I used to live in a small town with a river. So I was outgoing. I was talking, and everybody remembers me when I returned the last times. Max, you were talking to everybody. Of course, I saw the movies of exchange students, and I didn't want to be heat. I didn't want to be the weird exchange student, so I tried to be cool. And I was the Chilean, and I spent time with my friends. My in that time, my girlfriend Diana, and I just I was very outgoing, and they liked that. Unfortunately, in that time, there's a difference between how you look. I look Spanish. I don't look Mexican or I don't look Latino. So I was invited to the white area of Texas. And we talk about this when I returned, and my friends apologized because in that time it couldn't be okay to do that because we have the seniors, we have the people that went to pep rallies. I was the typical exchange student in the high end of the class, and I have friends that they we went to parties and everything, but I was not invited to the Latino parties because I look different. So that became my my fight a little bit to be this Latino because Chileans are Latinos, and that's why I like to talk about this issue to make understand people that doesn't matter how you look. I was segmented. I have Mexican friends now because I live in Mexico, and I now I put in the flag of I'm a Latino, and I can open doors to others. You know,
That is super motivating because a lot of people They have this identity crisis, especially in their early 20s or late teenage years. I've been there. I'm sure you have when you and but you are firm. You are proud of your roots and you made sure people knew that. To our audience, if you're in your early 20s, never be ashamed of where you're from. Never be ashamed of who you are. That sense of pride of your roots, being able to talk about where you're from, you may not recognize because you did say you were trying to fit in, but were you trying to fit in as that exchange student? Were you trying to fit in as that Latino exchange student? How I think that you struck a nice balance, Max, if I go and talk about it again. Like
Sure.
you struck a nice balance. You didn't lose yourself in the process, but you also integrated very well. And I think it's because you were true to your roots. People respected and admired you for that, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, I realized that I didn't look Mexican or I didn't look Colombian or Nicaragua. So I was the bridge because everybody's Max. Why don't you meet with the Latinos? Because you invited me. So let's do. So I had two lives. I met with the Americans, and the Americans in Texas where I live was very white, and I'm very easygoing with this issue because I live in Texas. I know how it is Texas. But then when I returned 20 years later, they apologized. They told me we didn't incorporate Blanca from Colombia and your Mexican friends and your Latino friends because they knew I was going to parties with Latinos because I'm a Latino. I didn't,
Yeah.
but I spent a lot of time with my Argentinian friends that they were white and my Mexican friends that they were black or Mexican. So now I have a diversity and they prepare us to be neutral about it. But I think
Yes.
where I was always the one to defend somebody that was with less opportunities. And I work in social projects where I help producers of grapes or coffee that they don't have opportunities. So my year in Texas was very important to get the confidence to become who I am now. But I wasn't aware of those topics in that time. I was just me knowing that I didn't look like they expect me to look because they thought that they're gonna have a Mexican look or Latino
Yeah.
that. So now I feel more comfortable to represent or do a fight about this. I don't talk about rights, but to open opportunities to people that they are.
I really respect you more. I didn't know this about you, Max. And by the way, this conversation is happening live. And
I
we've
know.
talked about your past, but not to this extent. And I'm Persian, right? I'm Iranian. I grew up in Canada. I've been here for 35 years of my life. Most of it has been in Montreal, a little bit of it in Vancouver. So I really, really understand what you mean when you're talking about fitting in. In my teenage years, I was running away from my Persian roots, but I'm very blessed because my parents made sure that I still, even though I was resisting, they kept teaching me about my Persian ancestry, my culture, and I met a friend on X. His name is Third Eye Seeks, and he inspired me to reconnect with my past and my history even more. So, to anyone, if you're young in your early 20s, late teenage years, never be ashamed of who you are. You may not realize it now, but later on, and people may, you know, there may be stigma, there may be racism, they may be unfortunately, they may judge you, but be respectful at all times. Just like Max said, later on, they will realize that they made a mistake. And you always want to be, whether it be in your career, whether it be in your life, you always want to be the person who has their head up high and keep that integrity and that respect. People will come back, people turn around. And if they don't, it's okay. Lead your life, but be honest with who you are and just be yourself. That's, I think, that identity. Who am I? This isn't exactly related to careers, but it sorta is because every single person that you cross paths with will talk to you and will ask you, "Who are you?" You're gonna talk about your career first, but at the end of the day, beside behind the person doing a job is a person with a story, right? So let's keep going. You did that 1 year of, self-discovery, right? Uh, you brought people together, so I learned also another trend in your story is you were by a river. Seems that theme of water is recurring in your story a lot, Max. And I'm trying to figure out, you finished your 1-year exchange, what happened next? Where did you go? What did that connect you? What's the next connecting part of your story?
In Chile, I took 6 months preparation to do a test to get to the university, and 6 months later, I skipped my senior year in Chile, so I did my senior year in Texas. So I had the dreamy moment of getting my cap and gown of Texas, and I still have it. Someday I will do a stream with that. I'm a purple because I'm a purple rattlesnake from Texas, and I study agriculture engineering. I became 6 years. I live in the mountains, and I was very practical. I chose to be close to a ski resort because I used to ski. So I created the ski club of my university. It took me a year, and the university put a bus to go and ski because the university value very much to create clubs. So I had this Texan. I was the Tejano. I was the Texan that a Chilean that live in Texas. So I brought ideas from Texas. So after 3 years, I was just traveling with the driver. And in the last year of my university, I had 10 people joining the ski club. And I remember when Diana de Gales died, we were together in skiing in the night in a cabin. So the ski club of the university was, that's the moment where we kind of bond more because we cry by Diana de Gales, you know. So all those friends now are around life, and we, thanks to WhatsApp and Facebook, we still remember those moments. University, I was also a leader. I tried to do a lot of things to, because I enjoy life. That's the person. That's the other angle that I try to do in my coaching is when I, for example, I have my clothes there drying, and that's a sign that I had a great week. And I always tell myself that I finish a week, I have to clean everything, and I continue. And people think that everything is perfect. It's not perfect, but I make it perfect for me to enjoy those moments. You know.
First off, my condolences for your loss. Diana, you said was your girlfriend a little bit earlier
No,
in the live stream.
the queen from England, the Diana de Gales, the Duchess from
What?
the from
Princess
England.
Diana?
Princess Diana, sorry. We were skiing and we were together and we saw the accident, the move in the news, and
Aw.
that's kind of the
Well,
moment.
Princess
Bond that.
Diana's anniversary of her passing was a few days ago, so may she still rest in peace. She
That's
was a
my
phenomenal woman. Okay, sorry, I was a little bit confused, but I love the fact that you talked about doing extracurricular activities and connecting with people, and that is one of my biggest regrets from high school was not doing enough of that. I started doing that in university with
right.
Isaac in particular, and I learned so much. So, to anyone, if you're in university or you're in high school, those extracurricular activities are, and just like Max said, in the 1990s, that's how he became known. It's through community. Unfeathered is a community. The Hunt is a community. The Startup Circle is a community. They're online. But try to find, when I was talking about going back to your roots, try to find those offline communities. Community can be a family, it can be a religion, it could be like going to church, it could be a class. And I just wanted to also acknowledge the kind words from Paul Justin, our co-founder, who's listening live on X. He says, "I wish I was there." Um, Here we go. Maria, thank you so much for that. We also have Git Coder. Thank you very much for waving at us. I appreciate you. Let's keep going. So to our audience, feel free to drop a comment. Would love to hear from you. Ask us any questions that you have about Max and his story because it's just starting. We're going to get really it's really going to get interesting now. So Max, let's keep going. You finished university, you went to Texas, you took the seeds, the learning experiences from Texas, you brought it back to Chile, you integrated some of the lessons that you learned there, you formed your community with your ski club, you rallied 10 people that you still are in touch with. What
Yes.
happened next?
I I did a thesis in genetics of a local berry called maki, and Madonna. They did a research on which berry has more anthocyanins, which is the components that helps
Antioxidants?
sex. Yes.
Okay, okay.
So my thesis as an agronomist was to grow maki, which is Aristotelia chilensis, and I did my thesis. I finished, and then a few years later, I realized that famous people like Madonna read. Maybe she didn't read my thesis, but two companies from Chile did. So genetics started to become part of my life. Right now, I work in genetics of vines and coffee because everybody, uh, like you, like everybody says, like Max, you do a lot of things, and I just laugh. I enjoy when people say that because I like to surprise people, not because I wanted to surprise. It just helps me to work in more areas, and people don't expect me to do what I do, and I enjoy when people get surprised. So I I choose a topic, vines, and I work extensively to become a specialist in vines, the oldest vines in Chile. And after 15 years of doing everything I can in that topic, seminars, courses, helping producers, I became a specialist in something. And we can talk about that, how I get it ended up in Bloomberg. But I I always suggest people to focus on one thing and get the best, and you will become the specialist. I did that in another interview, and they say that about become the specialist. You know,
So you skipped a lot of steps.
and
Let's step back a bit. Let's step back. You finished, you went to Texas, you went to Chile. What was that trigger that said it's wine? What was that? Because
I
in my head, I'm just going to say this. Every time I think of you, you come in a space, you talk about coaching, you talk about history, you talk about networking, wine, coffee, communities, tours, National Geographic, uh, traveling. What else? Like, it's, I know you by 9 things. 9. And there's more. Oh, this startup founder, right? CEO. Um, and I know I missed more. So we're gonna kind of like talk about the generalist versus niche a little bit later, but I just wanted to give our audience a little preview. I don't normally know 9 to 10 things about someone, but Max is a special case, and I mean that with a lot of love. Like, holy moly, you've done a lot. But I wanted to know what really motivated you to do wine? Like, your research is one thing, but how did you pick that one thing?
I became a tour guide that I am still now a tour leader. The only passion that I lost for few years because I lost track of my life for a couple of years. I love to be a tour guide, and I was when I was 19, I became a tour guide. So I was hired by a family from the U.S. to teach them about Elqui Valley and La Serena, where I live now. And the agency, when I call, hey, I need to rent a van, the driver said at the end of the tour to the CEO, hey, this guy is good, speaks English, great conversation to the tourist, convince him to stay to work with us. And I was in the university, so I became a tour guide of wine at 19. And during my whole career, my classmates went to pick grapes or berries or work in pesticides. And I focus on being a tour guide in a wine area and grapes. Okay, because I was an agriculture engineering. You need an agriculture engineering to grow grapes, right? So tourism for me, and I always help and push people to become tour guides in your town and start with the sign like in the movies because you will learn amazing people doing that. You can do a free tour. You can become a librarian and become, hey, let's go to libraries, let's go to coffee places. And thanks to be a tour guide, until now, 51, I started to work with all these companies that started to hire me. So tourism
Mm.
integrates
So
everything.
I'm gonna zoom back a little bit here. You did something good that like if that person didn't tell you become a tour guide, would you become a tour guide? I've
Not
always
sure.
wanted to know that. You still would
Not.
have?
I was looking for. I was in Chile. We have a slogan that we are all tour guides because we are a touristic country. So we
Oh,
have this feeling of showing our country. Sooner or later, I was gonna become a tour guide, maybe. But in Chile, you don't study tour guiding. I mean, you just work as a tour guide in cruise ships. But I was uh, a rare specialization in grapes, wine, pisco, and agriculture. Totally.
so this is another nugget of wisdom I'm trying to uncover. I look at patterns. I did say that different parts of your story revolve around water. Probably the like you were exposed to wine and grapes probably at a young age. But I wanted to zoom back and see if we have a young adult right now who is doing soul searching. Who am I? What am I going to do? What advice would you give them based on your experience?
My parents are very wise people, and we have a lot of photos. And I started to realize, I said, "Ooh, who were my grandparents?" So my grandparent one was a sailor, a marine from the Navy in Chile, and used to travel to London. And then my story with London is very specific. Here, where I live now, it's focused on London, and the ships from the conquerors from Spain and from England came from Europe to this area. So, and then my other grandparent was an agronomist in the desert. So I always recommend people to study their grandparents, what they used to do, because we have a record or a traceability. And we are in a place where we don't know why we are. It's because an immigrant, probably an immigrant, arrived to this town. And when you realize that, it's more easy because I like the ocean, I like the water, and it's because my grandparent used to spend his life navigating. So when National Geographic asked me, Lindblad expeditions to write to organize wine tastings, I was fascinated because I was going to be navigating. So I recommend totally to ask your parents who they were their parents and try to go even further because you will understand that probably I was from Spain or from Temuco, from the south of Chile.
I wish my friend Third Eye Six was here right now because you're talking about history. Step back. Look at your history, is what you're saying. Look at what your grandfather did. One of the Hunt community members, Lawrence Lockhart, if he's watching this, hi Lawrence, always says success leaves clues. Look back in your history, look at your family. You don't sometimes need to look far, just look around you. Look around you. You don't need to exactly do the same thing as your ancestors, but there are some things that they did well, and you may be also good at, you just don't know it. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. A lot of people don't know, but I come from a family of photographers. Photography is a passion of mine. And when I was choosing what to study in university, I ran away from my creative side for the longest time because I was looking to go into engineering. And I don't share this silly story often, but I chose engineering and I failed so miserably at it. It was a flop just because of the title. This is absolutely ridiculous when I look back, but I didn't know any better. But I chose I after a lot of rebelling with myself, I finally chose design. And just like Maria says, you and I have something in common, Max. I was open to trying new things. When I was in university, I changed my field of study several times. I also don't say that openly, but I'm very glad that I did because that gave me an opportunity to get to know myself, and all of the things that I learned, I put it to use later on. Some of it I use to this day. So, someone recognized potential in you. You saw as a tour leader. You went back in your childhood, you looked back in your family history, the theme explorer, the theme of an explorer connects, I believe, that resurfaced, and you kind of connected what you're already doing, what you love with your history. You put that together and you moved forward. What happened after you did your tour leading?
I moved to La Serena, where I live now. I live in La Serena 5 years. La Serena is 1,000 kilometers north of where I used to live. I became a tour guide, and I didn't want to be a tour guide my whole life because you don't get well paid. You get very well paid for a specific date. So I used to travel. I used to work like 5 months as a tour guide, and then I created Andes Wines in 2000, and I started organizing wine tastings because I live in a wine area, and I organized for 5 years over 50 events every week, a tasting. I got specialized in events, and from there I became a professor in the university on how to be a tour guide. Actually, 2 days ago, I met a student. I was in Instagram. You can check the video, but I was talking to somebody, and a girl stared at me, and she started walking through me. It's like, Mr. Maximiliano, yes, you were my teacher. Really? Like 23 years ago? Yes, and until now I remember you. Thank you very much for
Wow.
help to train me, because now I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Can we have a coffee? And so it's like, I'm gonna start crying. And I told her, because really, you made my day when somebody recognized me. I was with beer and everything. And until now, some of my students are looking for rearrange their lives because pandemic was very rough here in Chile. So that's how I started to become a coach, an advisor, because a lot of people, I know I inspire people, and people tell me directly, and I'm very open to make people reach to me in the events I organize. Company
Max,
saying I'm
you
the
lost
best
your
ever. You lost me.
I lost
I'm
the video.
oh, I'm here. Can you see me?
I don't see you.
Oh man, let me see. I'm here. But can you listen to me? Can you listen?
I can hear I can
Let
hear
me
you. It's
let
okay.
me get my.
These things happen in live streams, folks. Okay, we're gonna bring Max back shortly. So just please bear with me as we bring Max back. So this has been a very interesting journey so far. We have yet to uncover a lot about Max's journey. Max, are you back?
Here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, but I don't see you. I don't see you, but it's okay. We could continue without the
That's
video.
weird.
That's
I
okay.
myself.
These things happen.
Okay.
Our audience saw you for most of the live stream, so let's keep
Do you want
going.
me to
Is that okay?
refresh?
Sorry, Max?
Do you want me to refresh?
Sure, you could do that.
Let me see.
Okay. So he's gonna refresh and he'll be back. So, about Max. I did say he does 9 things. And okay, he's back. Welcome
Yeah.
back.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me? Okay.
I hear you. Yes, I hear you. Okay, perfect. So you were talking about you did teaching. I did not know that you used to teach university. And then you told me you do coaching. And it's interesting because when I uncover other patterns in your story and in your life, people will come to you and they'll tell you you're good at something. Did it take you a while to accept what they told you, or you embraced it immediately and you made the change right away?
I was the president of my class, so I was very young, aware of my skills of helping others. I always recommend to read Carl Jung, the psychologist. When I was in Alaska planting trees, I had the chance to read Carl Jung, and I recommend that. It helps you to understand a little bit about how people think, and I embrace myself. Brian Weiss, also I recognize that it helped me a lot to. That's an author that writes about karma, and I realized that I had this gift of talking and writing very young. So, and I was gonna be by myself for a long time too. I realized that because I was a leader. So I didn't need somebody to motivate me because I was the motivator. And I understand that very young. So, but I have this crisis in my life where, like, who I have to look to get inspired, and that's why Texas and become a digital nomad was my search for 2 years, because I lost I didn't lose my hope, but I did lose my job, my opportunities, all this successful life. I lost it and stopped for 3 years. I didn't do anything what I used to love. So we I was always expecting to have a period like that, and it did happen.
How did you go ahead and do that reset? What motivated you to restart from scratch and reinvent from scratch? Because I think this part is applicable to many people. We have people that move away, that immigrate. We have people that do a career transition. At any age, people reinvent themselves all the time. It takes courage to do that. How did you do it? What is the advice you would give someone who is in that phase of their life?
Right now that we have a lot of podcasts, I can send a list at the end of, or I can tell you the names that now I was doing nothing for 3 years. I didn't work for 3 years. I put all my savings. The government of Chile gave a lot of bonuses and sold my car, and I went to travel to Texas. I traveled a few months in Texas to reconnect with my Texan life, my Texas friends, family. Then I moved to Mexico, and like Timo and many people that I see around, people get confused on how I am, because they think I have my life resolved, and I don't have my life resolved. So I'm constantly pivoting my life, and I the only thing I did in Mexico was to go to the Malecon. I used to be in the talking to people. I didn't tell anybody who I was, so I was very, very fun to people really take me as I am, Max from Chile, because I was on the television. I had a program in TV. I used to have a wine store. So when you lose everything, and I did lose everything, I wanted to find myself again. I'm returning to my roots to become a tour guide. When I moved back to Chile, I became a tour guide again, like in the movies with a sign, moving people in the town. And I restarted everything. I started to organize events again. But I had this backpack of knowledge, and they people start hiring me the last 5 years, 4 years as a coach. And they told me, Max, we saw all your 2,000 articles in the world in press, and I want you to guide me because you have experience. So all my clients were from Texas, from Mexico, and some of them were from Chile. But it's rough to try to fit in again to my country when I was out for 2 years.
I spoke to a community member at Unfeathered, not this Friday, the week before. I think he knows who he is. I told him the following: if you're looking for a job and you're having a hard time finding one right now, you probably need to take 2 steps back to move a few steps forward. Now, he didn't want to go back to his IT days, but this is sort of relevant because, and this is a seasoned professional. This isn't someone who's entry level. Seasoned professional in their 40s, I believe. And I told him, find something while doing what you love. People will recognize the talent. He is consistently hosting spaces. So that consistency is there. That building in public is still there. And my guest from last week, Lou, was doing the same thing. And he's in a transition like yourself. So, folks, this doesn't matter what age you are. Sometimes you need to go back to something you love or something you used to do that you don't necessarily love, but something you're good at is the common ingredient here. Something you can lead with confidence, something that you can do while you're waiting for that next step. And you have no idea. I'm going to bring back the comment from Maria because she said, I think Max's success is absolutely influenced by his openness to try new things. Try something new, but sometimes you need to try something old too, while building in public, while seeking to reinvent yourself. And talk about it. Talk about what you want to do. Talk about your goals. Most people are not mind readers. Most people are not psychics. Word of mouth is still very powerful. So if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for a career transition, if you're looking for a new opportunity as a co-founder star, go talk to people about it. People want to actually help, but they can't help if they don't know what you want to do. So, Max, is that something that you did?
Yes, yes,
Did you tell
totally.
people about it?
Yeah, when I left Chile after pandemic, few months before, I took all my folders from Facebook and I started making videos. So I became an editor of my life, and I became a TikToker in Austin. I was in south of Austin, and so I got a lot of videos. So I recommend.
You TikToks too? I didn't know
Ah,
that.
I'm a TikToker. I have a few videos of 500K and everything. So, um,
Wow.
and I don't show.
You wait, got
I'm a
you
coach,
go.
founder.
Congrats.
I don't show.
And now
I just
TikToker.
take the photos of my, yeah. And while I was doing that, I was nurturing my soul that I used to be a very cool person, but I lost that mojo. Somehow I lost the motivation of creating things. So I started to, and I started watching Danny Miranda. He's a Texan that It's a podcaster, and I started watching Chris Williamson from London, and I started to spend a lot of time watching podcasts how to do this of reinventing yourself, and I recommend to do that to everybody. And the simple thing was to do these videos, and then make a list of all the cities that I have friends, and La Serena was the place. So again, my parents, when I returned, said, "Go back to La Serena. It's the place where you feel comfortable. You make a few smile when you talk about La Serena." So I moved back 3 years ago, and I started from scratch. I got a job as a tour guide, and I started writing again. I started organizing tasting, and here we are working with investors again, doing big projects here in La Serena.
Would you look at that? Would you look at that?
I know.
What makes you smile? Okay, Jared, if you're watching this, oh my God. So I was having a conversation with my guest from last week, Jared Loop. We were talking about AI video generation and design. To my surprise, I had no idea about this. But when I do a video call, I don't really focus on my face. I focus on the person I'm talking to. He's like, "Your face totally changes. Your face lights up when you talk about creativity, when you talk about design." And that was an eye opener for me. So, nugget number, I don't know, I lost count for this live stream, but ask those around you that you love and trust and that are closest to you. What lights me up? What when I talk about something, what makes me entirely change my facial expressions? That is a big indicator of what you wanna do because we are paralyzed by all the options and choices that we have. Right, Max? I recall now 11 things about you. I just added TikTok to the list, TikToker, influencer TikToker, perhaps actually is better. And looking at your past, looking at your history, looking at your ancestry, what lights you up is something else that I want our audience to be well aware of. I also like that you talked about repurposing. When you're reinventing yourself, you need to repurpose your talents, right? Your skills too. And what's the third thing you would add?
I like to help people. Um, this is gonna be very unexpected what I'm gonna say, but I was in Mexico and I got a call from somebody, Victor Rico, and Victor was the former operations manager of WhatsApp. He saw my story, and we start talking. I was traveling to Guadalajara. I said, "Max, let's talk. I like coffee, I like wine, you work in coffee, I saw your story, I want to talk to you. I'm not investing, but I want to meet you because I read about your story." And I was already featured in 2,000 articles around the world because of the coffee and wine. So to connect with people, social projects, coffee and wine, just that. Where we find coffee, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, that's my next move. But before, I need to go to Colombia and Peru. So I already have my roadmap because I'm working in the genetics of coffee and wine. And where we found those products all over the world. So the only thing I'm doing now is to in globalizing my management here. And I knew it was going to take me 20 years to do that. I work for the government in Chile in the innovation agency, and now I'm exporting that because my story, I'm rewriting it, but for Colombians, for Peruvians, and from Mexico. So my story, I rewrite it again, and then I translate into English and German and Italian because I want to work in those countries. And I've been doing the
Wait a
same
second.
thing for the last
You
25
rewrite
years,
your
and
own
people do it.
story? Wait. I am sorry. I have to
Yeah,
interrupt you here. Wait, you rewrite your own story? Uh,
sure,
Really? I don't see many people doing
of
that.
course. Because I mean, I'm a copywriter. For example, Dakota Roberts, all these copywriters that you see on X, I see a pattern. I've done those things. I did have a lot of money. I did copywriting. I did ghostwriting, but I didn't know that those were the names. I write a column every day. So now that I'm a editor, I have my own websites, platforms, but I know 200 editors. So I rewrite my story and I say, for example, the Chilean that is leading the vines in Chile now focus on Mexico.
That's
I'm doing.
why. Okay, okay. So when I was writing the post for this live stream, I found a LinkedIn article and I was like, why is the author Max Morales and he's talking about Max Morales? So that's what you're talking about. You are your own
Yeah, because I have
brand
a.
manager, I would like to say. You write about it. That's really cool. You're consistently
Yeah,
I think that is a very smart move because you know your story better than anyone else, right? You're the author of your own story and you're in control of the narrative and your brand. I can't believe I never thought of that. You're actually writing your own story in your own voice. While you're writing it, it sounds like someone else's, but it's actually you, but you're still authoring it. Stroke of genius. So you reinvent yourself. And I'm noticing a pattern, right? And I'm kind of zooming out on Max Morales right now. The generalist versus the niche, right? You figured out very young age. You said you knew you were very self-aware. So to our audience, create a memory dump of all your skills, write it down. Okay. I have a LinkedIn article. I'm very new to this live streaming thing, so I'll figure out a way to comment, put in the comments the article that I'm referencing to. I wrote an article with ChatGPT. Hats off to one of my product manager mentors, Rich Sanchez, because the idea was inspired by him to write a story bank of your entire life, kind of like your biography. The more data you feed, the more data you have to int input in the input, right, for the AI later, the better the answers will be, better the output would be, the quality. Sit down with yourself. This exercise took me 5 hours. A lot of tears in the process, but sit down. Ask people what you're good at. Ask people what lights you up when you smile, when you speak. Um, do a brain dump of your talents, ask people as well, and write your story. Follow the article. I'll share the link. It's in my LinkedIn profile. And the interesting enough, the article is about how to talk about yourself, how to do your elevator pitch, but you could also purpose it to get to know yourself more. I would recommend anyone to do this exercise on a regular basis, just like Max is. So when you're going to sit down and write your story and update your story, or when you're in interview and the hiring manager says, "Tell me about yourself," you have examples from your personal life that are sometimes applicable as well, that are relatable. At my current interview at Morgan Stanley, I'm a release manager lead there. They asked me a question, what would happen if 250,000 devices at the firm went down? What would you do? I absolutely had no clue what to say. I had to dig and look in my past and say I had a family crisis, which was life and death. And I kind of went into details about how I managed that. And I said, I don't think it can be worse than that situation. When you are faced in life with a life and death situation and a crisis, and you can handle that, you can definitely handle 250,000 devices going down. So look in your life. And I think, Max, the fact that you took the time, that's something many people don't do. We're all busy with um, the TikToks and the social media and XYZ, but we don't take the time to look within. And I think you took the time to do that. And that self awareness and looking outside for input, you went and processed it on the inside. That has really helped you in your life. Anything to add about a lot of the things that I said? And I know I said a lot, sorry. But this topic, the journey that you've been on is what my journey right now. So this topic is really near and dear to my heart. Today's live stream actually.
I made a list of all the things that I don't like about myself, and I made a list of all the things that I like about myself, like a photo. I don't know the name of in English of that: strength, opportunities, and weakness. But I did that when I was 20. Right after I was in Texas, I had a class about this thing, and I've been working on my personality and about my temper, my vision on how to treat people, because being like who I am makes me be in a lot of trouble sometimes because I'm very independent. I've always been independent as an entrepreneur, but my story, I got an interview and I did that story of 2 pages, and I have that original file, and then I start cutting according to who asked me, and I always help recommend to people to do that. And with Facebook, start doing videos from your life, your class. I mean, your birthday with your family. You don't need to show the things, and you can do it privately, but it helps a lot to remember. I have like 300 folders of photos, and I still don't cover all of them. But I spent 5 hours editing videos in TikTok in Texas and in Mexico, and not now that material I'm redesigning it and I reposting with a message. So I say, for example, when I was in Uruguay in 2009, now I'm planning my next trip. So I say to myself that I'm going to organize an event of Uruguay, but all the people that were in that video put like, and they offer me, Max, great to see you again, we can host you. So I this trend of like influencers, I'm not an influencer in Chile, I'm a specialist, like I say, but my niche is so specific, which is winery owners, coffee producers, importers. It's not massive, but I need to communicate something. So I've been becoming very good at editing, and now I take very good photos too and videos, and I have 4 Instagram: Andes Wines, Amix Tech, my personal, and one from another company that I run. So I start crossing roads. So I create my own network. My 2 websites, I recommend to do a Substack or any platform to start uploading, and that's it. That's You need to create your own ecosystem because nobody's gonna build it for you.
That goes back to being proactive. And I just wanted to kind of step back and
Yes.
just like say something to about what Maria said. Sometimes we don't see our own light. It helps to hear what others see sometimes to remind ourselves. Thank you, Maria, for your comment. And, we did talk about asking people what they think of you, what you're good at, and noticing and now we have AI, right? You can look at data. Data does not lie, right? You can look at the data, find that one, two things you're good at, make a marriage between that one or two things. In Max's case, it was wine and coffee. Look at the talents that you have and build a marriage. I would say also focus on, and those are the marriages, I call them branches. Focus on one to two, especially if you're starting out, so you don't get overwhelmed. And then as you build, when you're comfortable with one, keep branching out. Is that something that you did, Max? Does this make sense to you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've always done things naturally without much research, but now that you have all this information with ChatGPT, I'm writing 2 articles thanks to ChatGPT and rewriting stories, repurposing my communication, and it's the only way. Nobody's gonna write about me. Nobody's gonna write. Okay, they can do a story, but then that's it. So I created my own media.
And you're in
And by the
control of it.
way, I'm drinking tea because Maria asked me, and now I want to specialize in tea because I got inspired by a National Geographic episode about specific tea in Asia, and I want to travel to that place. So you're gonna start seeing me a lot about tea now. So I work in coffee, tea, and now tea, and people can write about dancing or about anything, ice cream. So it works. Takes time, but now with all the IA and strategy, much easier.
So the chameleon has evolved. How many lives has this chameleon slash cat lived? Tell me.
R7.
7? I'm sure there's more. I'd say
uh,
11. I don't have enough fingers for it
Probably.
anymore. Max, let's move forward to the present. What are you doing now? Because I think you briefly touched on it a little bit, but can you refresh my mind? What brought you to the present, to what you're doing now?
I package everything in one service, which is affordable PR or PR for founders. I focus on family offices. Family offices are groups of families that have several companies, but they don't know what to do with their extra money. So they create an office to invest in their community. And I'm a tour guide. Thanks to be a tour guide, I know what's going on in the territories because we are very close to mining industries, forestry, and fishing. And that's kind of the unknown angle of my expertise. I was hired at the beginning by fishing companies, by mining companies, and forestry to help interact with the community. So I started writing about books. I created a book. Now I'm writing a book again of this area. So my clients are not users in general. My clients are big companies that hire me to interact, and we call it share value and economic development. So I'm writing about infrastructure. So I proposed to create a pier here in La Serena, very similar to Puerto Vallarta, and I recommend
Okay.
to train, and
So
that's
I'm
my
putting
mix.
myself Okay, I'm putting myself this is fascinating though. Putting myself in the shoes of our audience and I'm like, okay, coffee and wine, CEO, and works at a company that helps with uh papers, infrastructure, and you also mentioned briefly coaching. What? How did that big change happen? Life
No, it
changed?
hasn't changed. No, no, it hasn't changed. It's just I live in an area where it's an agricultural hub where we grow a lot of things. So why coffee? Is because I want to
Mhm.
put coffee in this region, okay? But to put coffee in this region that I know this thing 20 years ago, I needed to become a coffee specialist. So I work 10 years in coffee. I talk to agricultures here, and we are going to try to put coffee here. And in wine, it's the same, but it's in the south. So these companies that have dominated the territory, they have communities. So I've been working with the communities to rescue culture, history, products, and mainly vines and coffee in Easter Island in this case, because coffee, we have the coffee in Easter Island in the Polynesia.
So what you did Oh, okay. The stroke of genius again. So you zoomed out, you looked at your local geographical context, you looked at your current talents, what you're good at, and I'm sure you had your roadmap planned because I know I'm speaking to someone extremely strategic right now, and you did another marriage. So you looked at history again, you looked at your culture, you looked at what you're good at, which you already know and love, and a new marriage was formed. New branches were formed. And
I,
you
when I worked
here
for
we are.
National Geographic, Lindblad Expeditions, they asked me to do a speech. Can you imagine me giving a speech to Lindblad Expeditions from National Geographic with all
I'm
the
not
special?
surprised.
So I started to think, okay, let's start with the navigators that left Spain, France, and Dutch and Netherlands. They went to the Strait of Magellan, they stopped in Chile, start moving, and then went to Easter Island. So my roadmap is that's my roadmap. This is Easter Island. So Easter Island was the last part to go to French Polynesia. So Easter Island is the most isolated island in the world, and they put coffee, mango, and all the crops that you can imagine because they have water. So all the navigators went through there. So now that 20 years later, they ask me and they put the face like, what you're doing because we don't understand, is basically trying to put Chile on the map because we have the genetics of Europe. We have the oldest Cabernet Sauvignon here in Chile. We have the oldest coffee in Chile. And I can have a list of 10 more products that in Europe, they don't exist anymore. So South by Southwest, I don't know if you remember in Austin, I was invited in
Yes.
2022 to give a speech. The daughter of um, Denzel Washington, Kurvalish, with her team works in food, and they invite me to give a speech remotely from Mexico, and I can give you the link of that speech. And that's why I'm so well known because even South by Southwest invited me as a speaker in the most influential beverage specialist in the world.
I also didn't know that about you. So, Max, wow. I actually will remove the word chameleon for you and I will put the word explorer
Thank
because
you.
I think that you're very welcome. It's a title very well deserved for you. I think we're all navigating the uncertainties in our lives. And, one of the things that I wanted to bring up earlier, but I forgot was I really like how your perception and actually your perspective on things, especially when you were talking about drying out your clothes, even though and you said to me, no matter what happens in your life, something along those lines, you were happy that, you finished your week. And you said that when you came back, you had to reinvent yourself for 3 years. You weren't working, you were traveling, and not everything was, like, set in stone in your life, things were pretty shaky, but it's that mindset that you had and that perspective that you had that carried you forward. And I think that right now we live in very uncertain times more than ever, and that perspective, the way we talk to ourselves is very, very important. Wanted to ask you if you have any final words of wisdom for our audience, and I have a follow-up question afterwards.
Oh, something. Um, I think it's very good to make that list of who, because I always say I have a breakdown literally, and I said, okay, I'm not working. I have to remember who I was. I made that list. I became number one in Clubhouse because I had a lot of time in Texas. I was number one in Clubhouse and I lost my account, but I met amazing people that then we went to X, and the CEO of Starbucks approached me few years ago. I read your story about coffee. Count on me. So make a list of the things that you're good at it. Don't remember, and if you are going through a crisis, rewrite your story because nobody cares. Maybe, but people, maybe you are not designed to be in your country. I'm fortunately designed to be in my country because I wouldn't like to be an immigrant. It was tough to be an immigrant in Texas and in Mexico. I make it happen as long as I could because of the visa, but then I have to leave because my visa in Mexico was approaching to the maximum. So when I decided to return to Chile, I was not clear if I was going to be able to continue living in Chile because of this motivation. I did have a crisis, and I've learned to embrace that, but I never show much about that fight, but everybody knows about that fight because they have seen me on X talking about it, but I don't feel bad about it because it helped me to show weakness. I still work as a tour guide. I became who I am and don't feel ashamed of losing everything or make mistakes because everybody does. And I realized watching so many podcasts of Tony Robbins and Chris Williamson and Jay Shetty, and I have part of my story is in each one of them. Some of them have put like of my story. Even Robert Greene, I recommend to read Robert Greene. He have republished some of my stories in his Instagram. I have the Sanskrit screenshots because I interact with him and I tell my story thanks to his writing. And I'm pretty sure the community manager likes how I do it. And I have those screenshots because millions of it's not the millions of reposting, it's just I resonate into people. You can be smart or you can be wise, but if you make somebody that it's well known to respond you, it's just writing practice, making mistakes. Somebody is not going to respond you, but maybe after 3 years it will. So I feel that I'm part of those guys that are on the news telling your story. I have been featured as the entrepreneur number one in Chile, but it's a process and hasn't been easy. But I know I've been the first one in many areas, and I have never seen the critics. Nobody has told me anything directly, but I know people criticize me because I do too many things, but I always say positively in my post, I don't talk about them. I say, let's go forward. Now I'm working on the coffee. Now I'm planting coffee. And those critics became allies and they became partners because they are investors. They are people that want to do
Mhm.
different things in the world. And it's not that I convince people, it's just I'm very determined to be successful in two things, coffee and wine. But the rest that I do is because those people see those things and they hire me to do other things.
They hired you not for one thing sometimes, but two. So, Max, I wanted to say something. There is strength in being vulnerable, and there is strength in you showing that. So, I wanted to say thank you because I'm sure your story will resonate and inspire many people. A lot of men have stigma around showing emotions or sharing vulnerability, and my one of my hopes is that that stigma dies down. Unfortunately, so just wanted to say thank you for kind of being a role model in that aspect for other men. You are one of many men that I know that are not ashamed of showing vulnerability. So that is a strength in you that I see, and I wanted to acknowledge. The other thing I also wanted to say is I learned so much from you today. I uncovered for our audience and for myself parts of your journey that I never knew of. And I've known you for 2 to 3 years right now. So I'm absolutely fascinated by your journey. And the other thing I wanted to say is you lead with kindness. You told us early in your journey when you did your student exchange program, you went from Chile and you went to Texas. There were some people that were not your biggest fans, but you stayed kind, you stayed cool, and later on, they many years later, they came back and apologized to you, and I see a trend again. those people that criticize you to this day, like right now, later on, well, and not so further past, became your allies. So always keep your head up high, everyone. Stay respectful, because at the end of the day, ego will not bring you anywhere, right? I like also, Max, that you strike a balance. You speak about yourself, but I don't sense ego. And I really appreciate that quality in you. And that is a quality that a lot of leaders lead with ego. And I don't see that in you. So hats off. I wanted to ask you, what is next in your journey? And I think that will be pretty much my last question for today.
Um,
That's my last question.
I'm living in a very strange situation. Um, all the things that I was fighting for to become this consultant in 360 for a family or for a conglomerate of companies arrived. Finally, I started to develop that, and I'm fascinated. I think now it's going to be scaling up the but because I did so many things, I just focus on two now. But I needed to find what I wanted to do and be happy all day. And I really enjoy hanging my clothes over there. And that's the clothes. And because it reminds me that I'm real and I like to jeopardize. I don't know if you know Jeopardy, but I like to jeopardize people to be surprised of what they could do if they could hire me, and it's happening. I don't stop posting. I post at least 50 stories per day in Andes Wines. I am posting at least 20 reels every day. Now I'm doing lives more often because I criticize a lot of influencers that did that. But I realize if I do it like I like to do, is not showing my face, just moving around, it does help. Do that. Walk with the telephone, post in the morning, post in the afternoon, go to a coffee place. If you don't have money, go to the beach, go to the square, start interviewing people, do content. And doing content, you will find that when you feel ashamed, you will start growing. And I've been doing content since I was 19. Now I'm writing a book with an historian about this area.
Wow.
Uh, content, generate content. That's the easiest way to search yourself, your ecosystem, and don't bother about people criticizing you because there always be people that don't like you. But then they because they don't like themselves. People that criticize are people that don't do anything to change. I've realized that too.
So Maria made a comment. Maria, thank you, because your content has been kind of helping me, inspire me for the discussion. I just want to thank you so much for that. Perfection is overrated. So
Yeah.
don't let that get in the way, people. Do it. Tell your story. I like how you use the word ecosystem. You used it at least 2 times. Find yourself, find your ecosystem in the process. My guest from last week, Jared, he's 32. He said his first video on YouTube is from 2007. 2007. That's like 15 years ago. For a little bit less than half of his life, he's been doing content. I spoke to Chris Stowe in the hunt. He popped in once thanks to Sean Charles and his persistence. And I asked him a question. Christo is a very renowned and like influencer and entrepreneur and designer for many people that don't know him. And I asked him, if you were to give career advice to someone, what would that be? He said, if I could go back in my career like 20 plus years, at least 22 years, I would start creating content. And I'm starting to see a trend. We are narrators. Human beings are narrators. we have intuition, we have creativity. And I've done my fair research on the current job market and everything with AI and AI trends. Creativity, we need to go back to our basics of storytelling, our intuition, our creativity, and connect with each other on that level. The fact that we're not perfect, that's a part of being human. We need to embrace that again. And I think that we've been so um, down the AI rabbit hole that we want to be so perfect that we are moving as we have like this thing I'm noticing we are moving away from our humanity, but we're also moving back towards it. I don't know if you're noticing that. So I love the fact that you talked about finding yourself, finding your journey, finding your ecosystem through content creation, through storytelling, through taking pictures, through repurposing your journey. And what I want to leave our audience with is that it's never too late to start. I started creating writing articles like in 2023. Prior to that, no, actually 2021 was the first time. I never did that before. It's not too late. Go back to your pictures, talk to the people that are around you, tell your story from use your God-given voice. God has given you a voice to narrate, to tell stories, to share your experiences. Do that. Be a Max Morales
I
and or a Jared
I,
Rue.
I see that we have 2,216 people. Is That's a lot in
Yeah,
Twitter.
just on X. I haven't checked LinkedIn and YouTube yet, but most of our audience is from X. So thank you, everybody. We hope that you got some value. Any
Leave,
last
leave
words for our audience, Max? Yes?
I send the links of the things that I've said. Please leave the comments, ask any questions, and I will send you the links of interviews, podcasts that has helped me because I made a record of all the podcasters. If you follow on Instagram, I have a Andes Wine podcast that I like. The same with Amix Tech. So at least 50 that it helped me to. There's famous people like that they have been even worse journeys to find themselves, and now they are repurposing themselves because there's too many coaches, there are too many advisors, and
Yes.
how you work is going to be an advisor and a coach, but you can be a content creator and help somebody there while you work on the weekends, or you are I don't know, you work in McDonald's, but you can be the best content creator outside of McDonald's. I don't know, but become one. It
Yeah,
helps.
it does help. And the last thing I wanted to say, and I keep saying last thing, but today's live stream is really inspiring me because, as you were uncovering your story, I feel like Yusuf, who commented, thank you for this session, Ned and Max. You are most welcome, Yusuf. Um, I feel very compelled to write an article about this live stream and also about the one with Jared as well from last week. But in that article, include any resources or links that you have to share. And what I wanted to also say is that regarding content creation, this was brought up several times, and I will say it again. You may create content and you may feel like that job application that we apply to and it gets sent into the void and no one notices. People notice. If they don't notice right away, they will notice it afterwards, and people will come to you. The most important thing is consistency and persistence, even if you don't see the numbers. Use the numbers as a guide. You need to pivot your strategy and, you know, the format and the wording, but you'll find your sweet spot. And I think that Max, you may have something to add about that. And then we will wrap up officially. I promise.
No, I have I have 6 accounts of X based on the projects that I work. So I continuing nurturing those databases, and now I'm merging everything. So I write one post, I make one video, and one article, and I adapt that to LinkedIn, TikTok, and X. And it helps because reach more people and smile. When I was a teacher of tour guiding, I always put a mirror to the students and show them how negative their face are because they are tired. So I convince myself, and I'm with a smile most of the time because of the tour guiding, because a tourist like somebody happy, and then find that passion. Passion is everywhere. Could be eating, could be writing, dancing, and anything.
Perspective is important. Exactly. I absolutely love that.
Yeah,
Max, I want to thank you for your time. You offered to be my guest last night. It was very short notice. I appreciate you so much for your time. And I know we went over by a lot. So thank you for being flexible with me. But I just wanted to make sure that the Max Morales story is told. People know who you are and how awesome you are. And I hope you are proud of your live stream episode. The other thing I wanted to say is next week, Justin and myself will be back hosting the career files together. Next Sunday, we are the 7th of September today. 14th of September, we'll be back 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Western Africa. I want to thank you again, Max, for your time and to our audience on X, LinkedIn, YouTube, and I forgot to mention Twitch. I appreciate every single one of you. Subscribe and share it out. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Till next week.
thank you. See you.
Lead with love, lead with impact. Bye, everyone.